really disorganized.
Let me ask you this. How did the YFN Lucci case intertwine with this case, if at all?
Not really at all. I think if a little bit more of that may have come in had Mr. Huey's case proceeded and he hadn't pled out when he did. So
what would have made
there was some
people who don't know?
There were some instances between Mr. Huey and some YFN folks that would have been introduced into the trial. And because he pled out, that ended up not coming in. And I wasn't as well versed in that area because that was Mr. Huey and Mr. Matthews Sr. and Jr. were his lawyers, and they were totally up on that part of the case. And there was I'm sure Max knew it because Max knew everything. Right. But that part of the elephant wasn't mine. I was leaving it up to them.
Right.
But I think some of the YFN stuff would have come in then.
So from your understanding, at the beginning of Thug trial, did Lucci ever have a chance to give information or cooperate?
No, I don't know if he was ever given the chance to do that, but I never saw anything come in
that will help, that will validate him testifying.
I never saw anything come in that would have been from Lucci to help the state in the case against YSL. I saw nothing.
So how could they have a RICO about the beef between these two gentlemen or these two entities, for lack of a better term?
Yeah.
And then not present anything that the so-called head of the other organization could
well, they got into some of that. They got into some stabbings at the jail that took place between, where a YFN guy was stabbed.
Right.
So they got into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But they'd have gotten into it more if Huey would have stayed there.
Okay.
But by that point in the case, Miss Love had pretty much been removed. Everybody.
So there was a point where Miss Love stopped showing up to court.
Yeah, the last month.
Why did that happen?
You'd have to ask D.A. Willis why that happened.
If you had to guess.
I guess because Judge Whitaker got so sideways with her, so frustrated with her. Yes. I imagine they made the tactical decision to pull her back.
Right.
She came maybe once or twice toward the end, but that was all, and to move Adam Abate forward.
Right.
So it was probably a wise choice.
I don't know, man. They lost a dog.
Yeah.
She was a dog in there now.
But it wasn't helping them.
It wasn't, well.
It wasn't helping them.
You don't think so?
The jury, at that point, when I talked to the jurors, they did not care for her.
But she wouldn't shut up when they say, ma'am. She'd be like, but she keep it coming. She's arguing for her side.
I know. And that's why I said that she could talk the ears off a donkey, right?
Yeah, you did say that.
To present. I appreciate Your Honor giving me the moment to speak. Thank you.
Your Honor, I apologize for interrupting the state earlier, but the state can talk the ears off a donkey. This continued filibustering has got to stop so that opposing counsel can speak.
And I'll tell you why I did that. She had this game she would play with Judge Glanville very successfully, which is she'd argue something, and if she lost, she'd just keep arguing until Judge Glanville would change his mind.
Yeah.
And I had won that argument. Argument, and I saw her doing her thing. Just go, and she filibusters. In other words, she just talks and talks.
Yeah.
And she doesn't let her opponent say a word. And by the way, with most judges, you couldn't get away with that crap.
Right.
But
shut it down.
They'd shut it down. But that was her tactic. And I thought, if I don't get up here and cut this woman off, she's going to do it again. She's going to get Judge Glanville to change his mind.
Right.
And I wanted that evidence kept out.
And there was another point where you were straightforward and you wasn't sitting on your hands like, oh my God, she's doing it again. See, some people will be like, oh my God, here she, but they wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You stood up, Your Honors, here she is again with this, and you just went right there with
I had to interrupt her because if I wouldn't have interrupted her,
she's doing the 1-2 again.
She was going